Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and I have with me this morning special guest Jeremy Jensen, founder and CEO, Encore Search Partners. Jeremy, good morning.
Good morning, Dave. Good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you as well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I just got back from my honeymoon about a week and a half ago. That was super exciting. Just bought a new house and moved in about a month ago. Obviously, I got married in Europe, and so business is good. Everything is good. Life is good. I feel great.
Wow, honeymoon, new house. What about a new car? Are you going to throw that in there or what?
You know, probably soon enough. Yeah, my wife's been begging me for my hand-me-down car, and so I think that means I need to get a new one. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. I love it. So you've been on the entrepreneurial journey for a hot minute. I mean, you've been doing this for a little bit. Interesting, in your bio, you grew up very poor. Yet you had your mom was a single mom. She had you at 16, and you remember having to move in the middle of the night every 6 to 9 months because you were getting evicted, and that constant change kind of forced you to become social. That's kind of where the journey starts. Absolutely,
yeah.
So what was the first job that you did? What was the first thing? I mean, that growing up poor, that can be tough. I can relate. I grew up as a little Indian boy on an Indian reservation, and so I understand what that looks like. But that gives you that drive and that hustle. What was the first thing you did to start making money?
First thing I did to start making money, I mean, golly, you know, real money. I was a general manager of a Pizza Hut whenever I was 21 years old. I won Central Region's Rookie of the Year. I was the youngest Rookie of the Year in Pizza Hut history. And I was making in the 50K, right? Like 55, 56, somewhere around there in my early 20s. This was way, way back in the day, 2004. And man, I had a BMW, I had a Chevy Silverado, I had a sport bike. I was living it up back in the day, man. It's funny, you don't realize that the simpler times, whenever you have no overhead, those are probably the funnest. Yeah.
Aren't those the funnest? Okay. Yeah. So you're the general manager, you're 21 years old, you're making 55, 56K a year, you're crushing it, life is good. And then what?
Oh man, I got fired from that job, Dave. Yeah. They caught me cheating the system. You know, I was we had gotten 10 different champs checks, is what they call it, basically confidential customer surveys. And then we had gotten $1,000 awarded from Pizza Hut. And unfortunately, I made the decision to give the money to two of my assistant managers that ended up using the funds for things that were not Pizza Hut management approved. And so I had to go into my boss's office and have a little bit of a tough conversation. And one of the blessings in disguise, Dave, is I put in my resignation because I didn't want to be fired, right? And then fast forward about a year later, I found B2B sales as a career, right? After a career in restaurant management where I thought I was killing it. And then you fast forward to 2006, 2007, I was making six figures in my early 20s in B2B sales, selling HR consulting services to small to mid-sized businesses. And so did that for about a year, broke off, went and started my own lead generation and email marketing business. That was a company that I'd founded at 26 years old. That company was called Market Share Solutions. Built that up to about 250,000 in revenue. One day we were expecting my first son, my wife and I at the time, and I couldn't break through that ceiling on scalability past that $20,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue. And I took a look at my client base and I saw that half my clients were staffing and recruiting companies. So I said, shit, man, I'm in the wrong business. Let me go start a recruiting firm. And so in January of 2013, I got into the recruitment business and I never looked back, man. It's been an unbelievable journey, right? You go back to 2017 revenue, or I'm sorry, 2013, 2014 revenue. We were doing about $500,000 a year. It was a good lifestyle business. Now we do about $1.5 million a month in revenue. And we're recognized as the largest privately held executive search firm here in Houston.
Wow, I love that. That's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations.
But the key is it took me 16 years to get there, right? But my background is in lead generation. That was my first business. And even though business has evolved, the way that people want to be sold to, the way they want to be marketed to, engagement rates, engagement mediums, right? At one point in time, it was email, then it was LinkedIn, then it was Meta ad campaigns, Google AdWords, things of that nature. As long as you're staying at the forefront of how to generate top of funnel leads, I think that any business can sustainably grow from there. You have to constantly innovate.
So what you guys are doing today, 1.5 million a month, and you are doing executive searching, right? Correct. So you're looking at who is your ideal client? Let's get that. Let's nail that.
Yeah, so very, very rich companies, right? So we recruit for wealth management firms, law firms, private equity, and venture capital, right? And so when you take a closer look at those PE and VC, it's their portfolio companies after they secure the growth capital. So we work with companies that are well capitalized and highly motivated to grow, right? And that could be, to grow their shareholder value, right? It could be, to open up new geo markets, commercialize new service lines. But we work with growth stage organizations that are well capitalized.
Okay. That's good. So you've picked a segment: wealth management, private equity, venture capital, law firms. That's basically where you hang your hat.
That's, I got that idea from Alex Hormozy about 5 years ago when he said, you got to sell a very, very expensive solution to very, very rich people. I think that was one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got.
That is a great line. I do love that. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to take a note from that. See, I just learned something from you today. That's a great thing. I love that. So you've built this business, and impressively, you have no debt.
That's one of the things that I'm most proud of. Yep. I think being raised by a single mom that had somewhat of a scarcity mindset, she had me at 16 years old. We were the family that would go eat off of the value menu at McDonald's and Wendy's, right? And so, she'd always taught me that, never owe anybody money, be modest, live a humble lifestyle, right? Be grateful for what you have, don't want for anything, right? And it's just one of the things that I've carried into adulthood is, if you owe the bank money or you own private investors' capital, then you can't have the creative freedom to do exactly what you want to do, right? And I think that's afforded me a tremendous amount of autonomy in my career, and it's allowed me to take some big bets on new processes, new people, new technology, and at the end of the day, more have paid off than have failed, right? And I think that's one of the things that I've done well is I've really failed fast, but still been motivated to continually improve.
Yeah, that's great. Do you when you're looking at your client base, are you working primarily in the Houston market, or are you working all over the US? Are you a national firm? Are you a regional firm, local firm? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's completely national, right? Whenever you look at the mix of the placements that we make, I would probably say that about 20 to 25% are going to be in the Houston area, just because those are the individuals that come in as warm referrals where I press the flesh, build trust and rapport in the community. So think like, we align ourselves with venture capital and private equity operating partners that invest in companies that may not necessarily be in the Houston market, right? But the VCs are in Houston.
Sure.
And so that could mean we place a CFO or a chief technology officer or a division president or VPGM in Arizona or Illinois or Alabama, right? Whenever you look at our largest practice area, it's recruiting producing wealth advisors, right? People that are working at Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, UBS, Wells Fargo. We recruit those individuals on a national scale.
Okay.
And I'm proud to say that we're the number one direct hire recruiting firm for the largest independent broker-dealer in the nation.
Wow, that's impressive. So you get a client reaches out and they say, "Hey, I need person X. I need a wealth advisor." How long does it take you to fill that role?
Oh man, a senior VP level wealth advisor that's got a $2 million portable book of business, that could take as much as 2 years. Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, one of the things that I've invested in is, I think in the early days of my business, I wanted to keep overhead as minimal as possible, and I wanted to keep my gross margins as high as possible, right? And so I would offer some of these recruiters a $40,000 draw against future commissions in order to get them on the team. Well, I think that compensation model works very, very well whenever you've got a 30, 60, or 90-day sales cycle, right? But whenever we got into recruiting wealth advisors in 2016 and 2017, we started to see that the sales cycle was on the short end, 9 months, and the average deal cycle took about 18 months, right? Sometimes as long as 4 or 5 years to move one of these high-level producers. That's whenever we made the decision, let's start offering a base salary to our people, lower that commission threshold, know that it's going to be a loss leader and we weren't going to be profitable on that recruiter for at least 2 years, but then having the financial model that showcased we can have the discipline in order to watch them to develop into a profitable asset for our organization. And so changing our comp model, raising the base salary, lowering the commission plan, investing more in resources and technology and data, that's been a critical growth catalyst for our organization.
Okay, that's good stuff. So you're looking at a wealth manager. They've got a $2 million book, movable book of business. Great. I understand that's 2 years. When you're looking at private equity, venture capital, law firm, is it that same 2-year cycle, or does that kick faster?
Yeah. So if we're placing a salaried professional inside of a corporation, right, we're going to use that illustration of that private equity backed fintech company, right?
Sure.
I had a meeting yesterday with an organization in Cupertino, California that just secured $15 million in growth capital. They came to us and they say, hey, we need a general manager in Houston and we need 2 enterprise account executives, right? The GM, she's going to get a $160K salary. The AEs are going to get $120. Those individuals, we're going to cold call, cold text, cold DM on LinkedIn. We're going to create a tremendous amount of demand for those people to want to come work for our client. Candidates are going to get presented within 2 weeks. The whole interview and courting process will probably take about a month. They'll have to put in their 2 weeks notice, and then that candidate moves inside of 60 days of the engagement, right? And so those are going to be a much faster sales cycle because we're not necessarily relying on them to break a non-compete or bring a portable book of business. They're bringing in that domain knowledge, that intellectual capital to help accelerate the growth of our client.
Okay, that's cool. So you've basically got two income streams. You got the long-term play, which I'm guessing you make more on, and then you've got kind of these short base hits or home runs that feed the beast as you're making the bigger deals down the line. Is that
was
kind
a
of
fair
accurate?
assumption to make. Yeah, we've got the home runs that move, those are probably 50% of our placements, but they account for 80% of our revenue. And then you've got the singles and the doubles that keep the lights on,
Yep,
right?
yep.
That's what pays the salaries, that's what pays the overhead. But then the home runs are what pay for the Ferraris and the extravagant European trips, right? So you got to have both in business.
Yeah, that's true. You got to have both in business. Very interesting. So you said, "Hey, did you meet Alex Hermosi, or you just heard him say this on social media or something, or how did you get that connection? Find something expensive to sell to rich people."
Yeah. No, I've never had the opportunity of meeting Alex, but I respect and admire him in many ways, right? His wife and he have built the company together. She's the operator and he's the marketer. He's obviously very committed to fitness, right? He's got an incredible business acumen. He's this confident speaker. He's got great executive presence and poise. And so he's somebody that I respect and admire from an executive standpoint. But no, I've never had the opportunity to meet him, even though he would technically be somewhat of an influencer of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so you've been in business a while. What are some of the key attributes that got you from, hey, I can't break 300 grand, I can't break 20 grand a month in reoccurring income, to doing just under 11 million in revenue last year with a 33% net income? What are some of those? I mean, there had to have been major shifts that you took, major learning moments where you made critical changes in business, where knowledge changed fast. What are some of those?
Yeah, so it was really three things in our evolution, right? I think way back to 2016, whenever I hired two key executives in the organization, it was the very first time I'd given away six-figure salaries to people, right? I was only doing $1 million in revenue. And at the time, I brought in a vice president to commercialize a new practice with about a 160K base, and I brought in a chief operations officer with about a 160K base. And so I carved out probably 40% of my net income to reinvest in more executive manpower in order to scale the organization, right? So it was bringing in people that I would say would be better than me in their respective area of expertise. The second thing that we did way back in 2017, and we started to see the fruits of that implementation, was we started implementing EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. That's been critical to our growth and success, especially from 1 million to 10 million, I would say. And then I'm going to give you a shout out to what you do, because I see the sign that says Sherpa CEO in the back, right? I brought in an executive life coach for myself, 50% life, 50% business coaching. I started working with Michael Anderson way back in January of 2021. And maybe I haven't 10x'd my business revenue over that period of time, but I have absolutely 10x'd my quality of life in working with that individual.
That's awesome. Those are all really, really good things. So what I hear you saying is 2016, you get this idea, this vision that really says you're going to invest in people. You're going to bring in, two key team members who are roughly 36% of your overall gross revenue at the time. So it's like, oh my God, if this thing doesn't work out, I'm breaking even or I'm losing money. But it does. And then you say, hey, we're going to drop into EOS. So you're doing the 90 meetings once a week and you're going through that process. I'm going to pause there. Does utilizing EOS 10 million plus still help you? Or do you find that in the EOS system, the meetings kind of get redundant now? Or is it still the lifeblood of the business? Or are you modifying those meetings to fit and change the scale of your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. Back when we implemented EOS, we were probably 6 employees, right? Now, let's say we're 36, I would imagine. We're still small enough to where those level 10 meetings are very, very important. Over the last few years, we've introduced new kind of like mid-level managers to the executive team to where their experience shares and domain expertise are creating more value whenever it comes to strategy, because now they're the ones that are driving execution, not just the executives, right? And so I would say that EOS is still very, very critical to our growth and success, because it forces us to have tough conversations that wouldn't traditionally come up, right? When revenue is down, I think it's very easy to take a look in the mirror and say something is fucked up in our organization. What do we need to fix? But when revenue is stable, you can kind of get a little bit fat and happy, right? You get a little bit lazy, a little complacent, right? And so by having those quarterly offsites, by having those monthly management meetings where we identify, we discuss, and we solve key challenges in the organization, I would say that's what helps us stay focused on continually improving.
That's a great answer. I've got a couple of questions for you. So you have core values in your business. Did you work through those with the EOS process, or were those in place prior to?
I'd never even heard of core values before I was introduced to EOS, man. Yeah, so our very first iteration of those were created in December of 2017, right?
Okay.
Whenever we rolled out EOS. It probably wasn't until 2020, a full two and a half years, to where we really started to believe our own bullshit, right? And the way that shows up is if I say that integrity is a core value, well, fuck, I better have the discipline to fire my number one revenue producer if he's not showing integrity, right? So it doesn't really show up until leadership exhibits that the words on the wall actually mean something.
And so that took you a couple of years to really work through. So when you're looking at that, you're utilizing your people analyzer, you're measuring that against your core values, and you're rating those team members plus, minus, whatever. And then even if it's the top producer in the team, if they're not living up to those core values, you'll cut bait.
You have to, and sometimes that means that, we had to grow from 1 to 7, then go back to 5, then go to 10, and then go back to 9, and then go up to 14 and go down to 11 million, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then that creates the foundation in order to profitably scale.
That's very cool. Now, when you're running EOS, you've been doing it for a while. Do you use an outside implementer to run your quarterlies and your annuals? Do you do it yourself, or do you use the coach that you're working with today?
Yes. So my coach doesn't get involved with my team or with any EOS strategy. We do have a Vistage coach that is a mentor for 4 of our key executives that are in her group. She actually is an EOS certified implementation consultant, but we self-implement, right? We've got an integrator on staff, and we've been doing it for about 9 years now coming up, right? And so we tend to think that we've got it down, right?
Yeah.
We know the playbook, right? I think the time where having a mediator or a certified implementer would have been very, very important is those first few years when the executive team is working through ego, right? Working through humility, gratitude, and making sure that it was a safe space for them to bring up pressing issues, to have very vulnerable, open, and honest conversations with each other, right? I think that if you don't have that level of trust or intimacy in business with your executive team, it's going to be very, very difficult to hold people accountable and to implement real strategies for change.
Yeah, that's an excellent insight. I mean, you definitely are a very smart man. I'm lucky to be chatting with you today. I think you've done some. I really do. I believe it. You've done some great stuff, man. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
When you move to, so you've got EOS down. I love that. And I think for any entrepreneur out there, the tip is EOS is a great operating system for the business and investing in your people. I mean, those are two enormous takeaways. Number 3, 2021 comes around. You decide to invest in a coach. This coach is helping you with business, lifestyle, or, whatever they've got going on. What was the catalyst that said, you know what, I'm going to hire a coach? Why did you do that?
Well, I've told the story many times, and so I don't think that I'm going to cry. But I got divorced in 2019, right? And, at the time I was making over $1 million a year. My business was still skyrocketing. For all intents and purposes, when you look on the outside, I had everything that I could have ever dreamt of, right? At 24, 25 years old, whenever I started my first business, right? And so I lived a very instant gratification, gluttonous lifestyle, right? And I'm recently married, so I don't want to go into too many details, right?
Sure.
But I lived a very destructive lifestyle that was fueled by alcohol and insecurity, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I drove my Audi R8 straight into a tree, probably going 90 miles an hour, and by the grace of God, I got out of that vehicle and safely walked home.
Wow.
Right. That was a big eye-opening moment for me, right? In my personal life, to recognize that, fuck, man, like I could literally be dead. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was that moment whenever I started to invest in being intentional about doing the self-work to become a better version of myself, right? A better father, a better son, a better dating partner, right? And you fast forward maybe 4 years, it took me to where I really felt comfortable looking at the man in the mirror, right? And I think that my success in business was fueled by innovation, creativity, being a good marketer, but that didn't necessarily mean that I was a good person, right? And so working with a coach has allowed me to identify what are those blind spots, and then how do I reverse engineer the ability to secure what I want more of in life. Maybe it's respect and admiration from my kids, right? Maybe it's trust and camaraderie with my leadership team, right? Maybe it's being confident in looking at myself with my shirt off in the mirror, something as simple as that. But when you have the forum to have those open, honest, and vulnerable conversations with yourself, I think you can actually be intentional about creating positive change.
That's cool. So you went through a very traumatic series of events. You hired the coach. Are you still working with the coach today?
I do work with Michael. Absolutely. Yeah. Michael Anderson with Cornerstone Leaders.
And how often do you meet with him these days?
I meet with Michael every Thursday at 10 a.m.
Okay, so you are consistent.
I'm consistent. Maybe he reschedules on me twice a year due to vacations. I probably reschedule on him 2 or 3 times a year due to vacations. So, we're talking consistently 47 to 48 meetings a year for the past 5.5 years, right? I've probably invested $150,000 in my coach, right? And you might look at that expense and say, holy shit, that's a lot of money. And now that I do the math, it's closer to $200,000. But the way that I see it is, Michael is like my business partner in my life. And he doesn't even have to take equity, right? It's somebody that's really helped me lay the foundation, and not just lay the foundation, but help me build the structure that's going to sustain unbelievable cataclysmic events that try to get thrown at me, right? And so, I was able to lose 95 pounds, right? I was able to eliminate alcohol from my lifestyle. I was able to rebuild trust with my ex-wife and nurture my relationship with my 3 children. I was able to find my now wife, right, who is a 25-year-old professional athlete from Poland, right? And now we're building this unbelievable future together with mutually aligned values, mission, vision. And I've almost implemented EOS in my personal life in order to achieve my life goals.
Wow, very impressive, man. Very, very impressive stuff. So you've accomplished so much. I mean, only 1% of all businesses ever make over $10 million. So you're just in the absolute, 1% club. So, congratulations on that. What's next? What's next for the firm? Where does Encore Search Partners go?
Yeah, so I would say that this year we're trending to do about 14 million in revenue. Right, we've been able to maintain our net income profit margins even as we continue to scale. We just hired a chief AI officer to come in and implement some pretty sophisticated top of funnel lead generation systems. Right, and so when you say what's next, we have to continue to establish ourselves as credible thought leaders and success makers in the private equity and venture capital space, right? I think that AI is going to create a tremendous amount of wealth disparity in the United States. I think that rich people will become exponentially richer. And I think that the middle class will continue to get squeezed more and more and more as cost of goods increase, inflation continues to rise, right? Positions get eliminated due to robotics, automation, offshoring, and AI, right? And so what we need to establish is more credibility in continuing to go up market. If I can establish myself as the premier #1 headhunter in the private equity space, then that's going to insulate us from ever becoming obsolete, because those people are always going to invest in using the best, not just the cheapest.
That's powerful. Now I want to ask you this question. When you place someone, one of the things that always makes me nervous, this is what that makes me nervous, is if I go to a headhunter and that headhunter finds somebody, I'm paying them a lot of money, 25% or 35% of a salary. It's typically what you see out there. I'm paying that dollar amount for them to bring me a team member. And sometimes I don't feel like they always want to bring me the best team member. They want to bring me the team member that's going to be fastest to get them to close the deal. And when you've got hunter killers out there, that are hunting and killing and, bringing them to the table, how do you ensure that the quality is the very best for the firm that you're working with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's something that I've struggled with as well, right? When I look at the early years in us growing our business, maybe we could have been guilty of just wanting those quick transactional commissions, right? And quite often, whenever you're recruiting individual contributors, that might be a supply chain manager or an accounting manager or an HR manager or some strong mid-level management role inside of a privately held organization, we could have been guilty of that same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Let's go find the accounting manager that really, really wants to work here, even though he may not be as qualified as somebody that we could potentially go get that's inside of the client's right salary range. Well, that's whenever I made the decision of, man, I think it would be a lot cleaner for us to recruit revenue generators, right? And let me explain what that means. If Sanctuary Wealth retains our firm to go recruit a $2 million producer that's got $300 million in assets under management at Morgan Stanley and try to convince her to bring her book of business over to Sanctuary, right? They don't give a shit if she's Black, Hispanic, Asian, 60 years old, 35 years old. They don't care if she's LGBT, right? They care about how much revenue does she generate and will her clients come with her, right? Because it's all about money, Dave, right? And so when you eliminate all of the different ancillary things that are associated with, are people a good culture fit, or will I get a, how long will they stay here? Are they going to quit at a year or 18 months? And oh shit, I paid Jeremy a $40,000 finder fee, right? When you eliminate all that ancillary noise and you just say, hey, Jeremy, go find me this woman. She's going to bring her book. She's going to do 2 million in billables. I'm going to make 50% gross margin on her book. Jeremy, I'll pay you $200,000 to go get her, because I've still got meat on the bone after I pay the recruiting fee and after I pay her to port all of her clients over to our platform, right? And so that's the reason why we recruit technical salespeople. We recruit product line managers that are expanding product lines, general managers that are getting our clients into new geo markets. We eliminate that emotional tie to, are we going to get our return on our recruiting investment, right?
That's a fantastic answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's all about what revenue will they bring in. And if you cannot confidently say that this person is going to give you an ROI inside of 6 months, I absolutely don't want you to hire them. But the fact of the matter, Dave, is that people that are making $500,000 a year or $1 million a year, these guys are not on Indeed. They're not on Monster. They're not on Career Builder. They're not applying for job openings. It requires a very skilled, aggressive, innovative, and creative headhunter that has the network and the ability to go out and steal that person away from their current employer. That's what we do at Encore Search. Damn, this person really wants to talk.
Yeah, they're hunting you down. They're on the hunt. They're trying to get you. But you know what, man, that's pretty cool. So you've really dialed it in to set your people up to succeed, so that you're setting up your clients to succeed, and you've niched it down and you understand the core motivation, and the core motivation is money and growth. And that's what this whole thing is about.
Money and growth, keeping shareholders happy, right? Because that's the world that we live in, right? If you want to go save the whales, you can go recruit for a staffing firm that helps people find jobs when they're unemployed. Our why, it's on our website and it's on our wall in our conference room. We want to be the best. We want to close deals. And we want to make money. That's our why. That's why we're in business. And guess what? Guess what, Dave? In the early days, maybe we would take a job order where Dave Westcott would retain us to go find a personal assistant. He would pay her 65 grand and we'd charge a $16,000 recruiting fee. Now our clients are Sherpa CEO that say, hey, go find me Dave Westcotts that have portable books of business of at least $30,000 a month. And we'll pay you a finder fee because we know we're going to take our carry on whatever his billables are, right? And so those are our clients. Now we're recruiting the Dave Westcotts, not his staff.
I love that, man. You have built a phenomenal business. Congratulations, man. You really nailed it.
Thank you.
This has been a great conversation. I mean, you're really doing a great job. Okay, so I've just got a couple questions left. We'll bring this thing in for a landing. Any tip for any CEOs, entrepreneurs out there who are running their business today and that want to cross that $10 million threshold, who want to have that debt-free business, who want to live that storybook life that you've got lined out for you?
You have to have an open mind. You have to be coachable. You have to look at any challenges that are going on in your life, and you have to look inward and say, what did I do that led to that, right? Whether it's you lost a very important relationship in your life, whether you're not happy or comfortable with the person that you see in the mirror, right? If you lose a key employee, right? If you lose a key client, I think that a victim mindset can help depress people's growth, right? But if you look inward and you say, hey, what could I have done in order to mitigate that exposure, right? And then you actually fix the fundamental problem that led to it, I think that you might fast forward 10 years, and you might be like, holy shit, I'm pretty proud of the person that I evolved into, right? And sometimes that means right? Completely changing the playbook on what it is that you do, right? I had to have the humility to say, hey, my book of business is manufacturing and industrial, and my vice president's book of business is wealth management. And I had to have the humility to like take a second seat to watching him build a bigger business than me inside of my organization. And to say, hey, look, let me continue to invest. My profit margin might be lower on that practice area, but hell, that's something that can scale far beyond what I'm personally capable of. And so humility, gratitude, growth mindset, self-awareness, those are all critically important to your growth and success in life and in business.
Awesome stuff. I love it. Are you on social media? Can people in the listening audience follow you on social media?
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram. It's just my name, Jeremy Jensen, JeremyJenson. You can follow the life of me and Yulia, right? My new bride. And then if you want to follow on LinkedIn, it's just my name. And then I've got a little goat emoji next to my name, Jeremy Jensen at Encore Search Partners.
All right. And if anybody's out there and they're in the fields and the areas that you play ball in, how do they get in touch with you? How do they get in touch with your team?
So if you are an executive or some type of investor in a company and you're looking to accelerate the growth of that organization, you can either go out and buy companies, or you can just poach the revenue producers that are working for your direct competitors. It's always cheaper to just steal the revenue than to go out and buy the company. If you want to poach people, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. We are professional poach artists. This is what we do for a living. We do over 250 placements a year for people that bring portable books of business. Shoot me a DM on LinkedIn.
I love it, man. You broke that down. There is no BS with Jeremy in the house up today. We're going to poach that business. We're going to steal that business. We're going to bring it right across the table. It's faster than going out and buying it, creating it, working it. I love it, man. You are just right to the point. We aren't mixing words over here.
Now you see why private equity firms love us, dude. They care about value creation. That's the number one goal, right? They don't care if you do it organically, inorganically, through mergers and acquisitions, whatever. Raise prices, reduce overhead. Value creation is what we do.
That's right, man. That's right. You were keeping it old school in there with just the way you go to business. I love it. You're doing a great job. It's very cool. All right, last question of the day. We've got a big billboard, whiteboard. It's on the side of the road. What do you want to share with the world? One phrase, one sentence, one word. What is it?
I'll say that the one phrase, I learned it from Mark Cuban on an episode of Shark Tank that I watched in 2017. And he said, the riches are in the niches, right? If you're everything to everyone, then you're nobody, right? What you want to be is the absolute best in your field, and you want to provide that solution for people that have unbelievable amounts of capital, because people that have discretionary income will always pay for the best, and they don't necessarily need the cheapest or the fastest.
Bam. I love it. You killed it, man. That was fantastic. This has been the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. Check out Jeremy Jensen online on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Check out his company. If you're out there, hook up with this guy, man. If you need to get if you need to poach a top producer, if you need to steal a revenue producer, get with these guys, man. They are rock and roll. That's the real deal. I love it. Just right out there in the open. No nonsense about it. They're getting it. We're back 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every single Tuesday. Give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments into the comment box. Thank you so much for joining in today. And Jeremy, it's been awesome hanging out with you for the last 45 minutes.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.